Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. This is actually going to be a channeled message today. So on Friday, there was a question about the ascension between fourth, fifth dimension, shifting from the third dimension. And I am going to do a video talking about what that looks like and feels like, but I thought to start with, it might be really interesting to take a look at how the ascension is actually going to impact governments and politics. So I am going to ask that it's sort of focused on the United States, and that's the biggest sort of area of concern to most of my viewers. And add, if they have anything, globally to add to, please do so. So that's what we're looking at today. So here we go. Spirit. Can you please give us some insight or guidance in terms of the ascension that has started shifting from third dimension to fourth and ultimately fifth dimension? How is that energy shift going to change the paradigm of politics? How is it going to change the way politics is viewed and kind of what its purpose is for? So the first thing to understand is that this shift is not instantaneous, okay? There is a very long process that one goes through as they are trying to almost like acclimate to a higher vibrational level, all right? Um, so we start with that. It's, if you are 20, 25, you are going to experience so much more of that transition than somebody who is 60 or 65 or older, because the shift, it doesn't take place in a couple of years. It takes place over a period of decades, almost in an attempt to encourage those people who maybe are not yet there to shift along, all right, to move up. Now, what happens with the ones that just don't? It becomes a situation where, in many ways, you're already experiencing this, particularly in the United States, where what you have are kind of two different groups of people living with two different realities. Now, of course, one is subjective and one is, objective. Be that as it may. Um, so what you have are people who have different perceptions of the world and the world around them. Now, there's going to be some astrological happenings going on. And a lot of the astrologers are talking about this sort of, shift into Aquarius and how that's going to impact things. And the shift to Aquarius, which I think happens, and I think it happens in January, and then it kind of goes retrograde, and then it goes back, and then it hangs around for like 20 years or something. So what you have is that shift to Aquarius shifts sort of mankind's attention to humanitarianism. It shifts its attention to compassion. It takes it out of a sort of war zone into more of a coming together, listening to each other, understanding each other. And how that evolves is over a period of time. So, what you're going to see is almost like incremental shifts or changes. Now, some of that might come through sort of newer politicians who are coming on the scene, particularly those young politicians who, those Gen Zs, I think I got that right. Who the 25 and et cetera year olds that have been made it into political office, you're going to see more of that going on, and you're going to see that they're going to start to have a really significant impact. Along the way, they're going to learn that you can't throw out all of the rules before you have the new ideas in place. So sometimes when you see these younger politicians really, really pushing a cause or a concern, and I'm not saying they're not wrong, they're right. I'm not saying they're not right, they are, but it's a matter of learning how to, when to push and how to push, and knowing that, again, this transition takes place over a significant period of time. So what you're going to have happen is more and more politics that really do present themselves as very, very corrupt or very favorable to one group or another. That kind of energy is going to become less and less tolerated. And where you're going to see that really impact is the average person saying, nah, enough is enough. You make this system fair, whether it's about taxing, whether it's about the education system, whether it's about Medicare, it doesn't matter. There's going to be a sort of a push to try to, at least in some areas, get people on a similar sort of level or path, so that you don't have these 2 and 3 tiered systems of, different people get different quality service or different benefits or advantages. So that's some of the stuff that you're going to see that's really going to start kicking into effect 2024, 2025, 2026. You're going to see that sort of shift away from this sort of commercialism first attitude. Now, you're also going to see shifts that take place with people's tolerance or intolerance to war, to extremism, to anti fill in the blank, anti gay, anti, same sex marriages, anti, you know, um, the whole thing. Sorry, my head just went blank. But the whole, thing, just look to the Republican Party and see everything that they are standing against. Those kinds of things are going to find their place, and people are going to find less and less tolerance for people who can't tolerate them. Again, part of it is a lot of this older stuck energy is starting to shift off the planet. And I mean, we are going to see that sort of almost like increased migration of souls leaving the earth, because it's either their time, they've completed what they set out to accomplish, and sometimes it really does boil down to their energy is no longer compatible to the energy that surrounds them. And so, that's when it's time to, pick up your cards and leave the game. So you're going to see a lot of the people who are holding so tight either start to lose their power, whether, it gets handed down to a younger generation, whether people in the streets are like, that is enough, government step in and balance this out. But that's how you're going to start to see the shift. So you can look for changes coming forward in the sort of the essential services. So you're going to see changes in taxation. You're going to see change, and this is sort of global. You're going to see changes in medical care and a lot of the new technology. So even countries like Canada and everywhere else in the world that has sort of, you know, medicine for all right, um, or Medicare for all, you're going to see that there are going to be leaps and bounds in terms of the equipment they use, how fast they can diagnose stuff, that kind of thing. You're also going to see in the United States a shift towards, you know, the the Obamacare package is going to continue to strengthen and evolve until it is more in alignment with what other countries offer their people. Um, and that's that's going to be very, very helpful. So again, things that are, okay, so education. There is going to be a push for it- it's almost like common sense education. It's going to be about making sure that when kids are leaving high school, they have the basic knowledge of how to function so that whether they want to go to university or to college or join the family business or whatever, they have like functioning skills. And so you're going to see that kind of a shift. You're also going to see a shift back to telling the truth. Um, and there may be different perceptions of certain events, but at the core, the facts are going to remain the same. So that's one of the things that you're going to see. Now, again, remember what we said at the beginning. You're going to end up with these two different sort of groups in terms of people living in the same place but perceiving it differently. Where you're going to see the shift is in bigger institutions. Okay. So when the government steps in and says, no, 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 this is now getting, placed into law and it's not going to get messed with. Um, that's where you're going to see that those people that are trapped in the third dimension really kicking up the fuss, because again, this is shifting and changing their perception of how their world should be. The rest of us are going to be going, thank God, things are finally, coming into alignment and balance. So it's just really important that politically, particularly in the United States, there is some clarity and understanding about how those energies work and what's going on with them. And I think that um, kind of across the board, some of the better readers, whether they're psychic, tarot, whatever it is, they're all sort of starting to talk about that same message, which is keep the light turned on, right? Stay focused on the positive. Do not sink into the worry and the anxiety and the fear. There seems, that message is getting repeated and repeated and repeated, and there's a reason for it, because it is very easy, given the current energies, just broadly speaking, to fall into those lower energy vibrations: fear, worry, anxiety, hate, distrust. Okay? It's very easy to fall into them because there's a lot of them. And in order to balance that, you have to work so hard at keeping the positive energies high. Now, so we know these, right? It is love, it is understanding, it is inclusiveness, it is justice without It's a word they just gave me that I flew right out of my head. It's sort of revenge, right? There's going to be an understanding of, yes, you did this, and yes, that was not good. This is the just result of that. Not even punishment, but the result of that. That's the consequence of that. But we're not trying to get vengeance. We're not trying to, pay you back. We're of a mindset where we're more interested in connecting with whatever light there is in that person, and knowing that sometimes that means there is incarceration, and sometimes it means there is a real um, push away from automatic incarceration, particularly where these people do not need to be incarcerated. And I'm speaking, now over broadly in the United States, you're looking at younger Black men. Um, and that holds through with sort of different kind of connotations in different countries. In Canada, you're looking at um, the Aboriginals, the Native people, who have been here long before we got here and took their land. But again, they sort of being, found guilty before they're even charged, right? So you're going to see less and less tolerance for that kind of energy. And you see it already starting. And don't minimize the impact of the, George Floyd's. Don't or the Briannas, or don't minimize that, because that is the beginning. Those are the first steps and stages where people are kind of standing up and going, you know what, like enough. So that's what you're going to see. You're going to see the people saying, no, no, this is how we want things run and how we want things done. One of the things that has happened over time is, people who are frightened tend to speak very loud, and they tend to get very aggressive. People who are more content and comfortable, more soft spoken, they kind of sit back, they're not jumping around. Well, so what's happened is you have, again, we'll focus on the United States. You have the Republicans who have been yelling and screaming and screaming and yelling. They're getting all the attention. Meanwhile, the Democrats have been sitting back on their kind of laurels for years now, saying, of course, they're not going to touch Roe v. Wade. Of course, they're not going to do this. Of course, they're not going to do that. And because they're, there's more in their world that they're content about than not, they've sort of lost that ability to kind of push back and say, nah, nah, enough. And so you're going to see those sort of independents, and those, I'll just broadly call them Democrats, okay? The people who are making those shifts, you're going to see them start to become more vocal and, out kind of on the streets protesting and getting their message out there, because it's going to become that much more important that that light gets held. You stand in your light. You recognize that that light is your power. And with that power and that light, you can command, the word command, the changes that you're looking to seek, not demand, not force, but command. This is the way it's going to be now. This is how we want it done. And when you get huge numbers of people doing that, and they're showing me a picture of the Women's March the day after Trump was inaugurated. That's what happens when you get people power. All right. That is what happens when those people who, by and large, were sort of going along, get a little riled up and go, you know what, I've had enough. That's the kind of energy that more and more you're going to see as things unfold, because more and more people are going to start focusing in on a lot of the injustices that are sort of just broadly going on. And there's going to be that movement towards starting to correct um, those things which are not broadly speaking what people want. Now, there is also going to be a greater understanding of how, for example, politics works, a greater understanding of, for example, how big, huge conglomerates work. Because the reality is you can't fix something if you don't understand how it is currently functioning. And so, again, how do you figure out how it's currently functioning? Well, things get exposed, and they get exposed, and they kind of ramp up that fear of, oh my God, everything is corrupt. Who can I trust? What can and it spirals into crazyville. And instead, you look at those things and go, great, another band-aid has been ripped off. And now we can see better, we can see deeper. And the more we see and understand, the better we are able to start looking at creating the change. And again, we'll repeat. This does not happen in a few years. Significant shifts will be in place and accomplished within 10 and 20 years. And that doesn't mean that everything that's rotten right now is going to stay rotten. It's not. But to that point where people can actually really go, oh my God, like I can't believe how much different things are now in 2045 than they were in 2025. And by extension, when I look at what was going on in 2025, that was a whole lot different than what was going on in 2005. So you can see, there's sort of like these timelines or these loose timelines that move forward. And for people who are young, they're going to be looking at 2060, 2070, and the world is going to be a very, very different place than it is now. Now, briefly, we just want to touch on, because more and more people are sort of starting to get the message or understand or be told that really is one of their last or their final lifetime on earth. And their energy usually almost belongs somewhere else. They've come from somewhere else to be part of this evolution of the earth, because frankly, you humans have screwed it up several times already. That's how you get Atlantis and Lemuria. You've already done it wrong. So now there's an influx of energy, from spirit, from other evolutionary sources, from other dimensions, coming forward to do everything that can be done so it gets done right, correctly. It expands, not contracts. So there are a lot of people wandering around the earth who kind of feel like they don't quite belong here. Um, there's just an energy of, I kind of see what's going on around me, and I don't get it. I don't understand why people are reacting with such rage or whatever it is, right? It's because you probably weren't born here, born the soul, um, and you're not going to stay here. Now, likewise, there are people who really have had some of their very first life experiences on the planet. And they will continue to evolve with the planet. And does that mean that if you are, of the earth, that you're never going to ascend? No, that's not what it means at all. It just means that there is a process that you are going through in this vibration. And very often, sometimes I think some of those people are the very ones who down the road are going to be able to really start ushering in not the changes so much, but the new status quo of the changes. All right. I think that is sort of enough for right now. It is a lot to absorb. Thank you, Spirit. Um, but I think while we're sort of absorbing and listening to and understanding. And on that note, I'm going to remind you to put your questions for Pendulum Friday in the comment section below. And until the next time we get together, take care and be well. Bye bye for now.